Hello everyone, I am Priya and welcome back to my channel Learn with Priya. So today we are going to learn class 9 history chapter number 5, that is pastoralist in the modern world. So this is a chapter that is very easy in history because that is the chapter which it is very easy to memorize, and if you are having this for your exam you are very lucky because this is the easiest chapter ever I've seen. Okay, so let's start. Pastoralist in the modern world. What is pastoralism? Do you know what pastoralism is? It is an occupation adopted in societies in India and Africa, and with passage of time through agriculture, industry and service sector is rapidly dominating, but it has its relevance during the colonial time as well as in modern times. So pastoralism is a occupation. What is pastoralism? Raising of animals. It is similar to animal husbandry. Okay, so this occupation is adopted by societies in India as well as Africa, mainly in the colonial time, and in the modern times, that is even till now, it is still followed by many people in India as well as Africa. Who are pastoralists? They are people who herds livestock, often as nomadic wanderers who without a set or a specific farm area. What are nomadic? Like, who are nomadic wanderers? Do you know who is nomadic wanderers? Wanderers. Nomadic wanderers are people who do not stay at a particular place. They move from one place to another frequently. Pastoral nomads. Pastoral nomads are those who with their livestock migrate in an established territory to find pasturage for their animals with the change of the seasons. So that means they move from one place to another depending upon their season for finding pasturage for their animals. That is finding forage for their animals. Okay. Pastoralists in India. So we're going to learn first about pastoralists in India. In mountains. So in the mountains of this region, what is this region? Himalayan region. We're going to learn about this region, pastoralists first. Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir, there are pastoralists called Gujjar and the Gujjar Bakarwals. These Gujjar Bakarwals reside, I mean, not reside, yes, I guess. I'm sorry, pastoralists, they do not have a specified farm area, and pastoral nomads also do not have, but they move from one place to another. Pastoralists do not. So these Gujjar Bakarwals reside in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, Himachal Pradesh is resided by Gaddi shepherds. Gaddi shepherds reside in Himachal Pradesh, and Garwal and Kauman Gujjar cattle herders reside in Garwal and Kauman. And Himalayan region Bhotias, Sherpas, and Kinuras. Okay, in plateaus. What are plateaus? This region is called plateaus. Okay, in this area, Maharashtra, Dhangaras, shepherds and also buffalo herders resided. In Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, the Gollas, cattle herders. Who are Gollas? The cattle herders reside there. The Kurmas and Kurvas, sheep and goat herders, they also do reside in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. In plains, and deserts, in swampy areas. Okay, plains matlab kya? What do you mean by plains? Plains means these northern plains. Okay, in the northern plains, that is this part. Okay, this part in the plains. UP, Punjab, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra. These five states have common residents, that is the Banjaras. And in deserts, we all know it is only desert in India is Rajasthan. Raikas, the camel herders, Maru Raikas, sheep and goat herders. In swampy areas, that is Ran of Kunj. If you have seen my earlier video of climate, then you have heard of this place, Run of Kuch, and it is in Gujarat. Okay, Run of Kuch is present in Gujarat, that is, and they are the Maldari herders. The Gujar Bakarwals of Jammu Kashmir, sorry. They move in groups up and down, known as kafila. They move up and down, known as kafila. They make a rotation. Their movements are gone by cold and snow. So their movements actually depend on the weather conditions. Okay, so if the climate is cold, they move to a warmer place, and if it is snowing, then they also move into a warmer place. In winter season, they move down to the low hills of Shivalik range of Himalayas. So as we have studied, the movements depend on the climatic conditions. If it is hot, they move down the Shivalik range, because we have learned that Shivalik does not have many mountains like the upper Himalayas has. The Gaddi shepherds in Himachal Pradesh, they spend their winter in low Shivalik hills and in summer in Lahul and Spiti region of Himachal Pradesh. When snow melted, they moved to the summer meadows on the high mountains. What are meadows? These grassy lands are called meadows. Okay. The Gujar cattle herders of Garhwal and Koman, they spend their summer in Bugyals. It is a vast meadow in the high mountains. Mountains, these meadows, these grassy areas are on the mountains. They spend their summer in the Bugyals and their winters in Babar, dry forested area below the foothills of Garhwal and Koman. The Bodhya, Sherpas, Kinuras of Himalayan region, they follow the cyclic movements. They follow cyclic movements, okay, according to the seasonal changes, and makes best use of the available pasture at different places in that region. Okay, and I hope you are understanding the topic very well. The Dangras of Maharashtra, okay, they stay in central plateau during the monsoon. In October, they used to move their herds towards Konkan region and manure the fields lying vacant between the Kharif harvest and beginning of Rabi crop. They retreat back to Maharashtra as soon as monsoon occurs. Okay, the Konkan region is the Karnataka region. Okay, so what they do, they have the pastures with them. So when they move to the Konkan region in the winter seasons, as it is so cool in the northern area, what do? They give some manure, the animals manure, to the farmers there, and the farmers give some space for them to, or the shelter for them to reside for some time. So this is a trading system. Okay, the Banjaras of UP, Punjab, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, and Madhya Pradesh. They used to move to different places in search of good pasture land, even long distances. They also sell plough cattle and other goods to villages in exchange of grain and fodder. Another trading is done with them. Okay, what happens? They move to a place where they find good pasture land for the animals, to provide for the animals, and in that place, what do? They sell plough cattle. They sell the plough. What do you mean by plough cattle? The animals which help the farmers to plough their fields are called plough cattle, that is the buffaloes. Okay, so in exchange, what do the villagers do? They give them grain and fodder, and for some time they'll have food and shelter in a particular place, and they will then come back or retreat to the original native place. The Gollas, Kurmas, and Kurubas of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Normally, Gollas herd cattle. Gollas used to live near the woods, and in the dry periods, they moved to the coastal tracts. The Kurmas and Kurbas raised sheep and goats and sold woven blankets. They used to live near woods, cultivated small patches of land, and engaged in a variety of petty trades. Okay, so if they ask you what is the difference between Golla and Kurumas and Kurubas, it is very easy, right? Because the Gollas herded cattle and they used to live near a forest. In the dry periods, they moved to the coastal tract, that is the coastal areas where water is available. Kurumas and Kurubas, they raised sheep and goats, and they sold the woven blankets out of these sheep and goats, and they sold them. And next we have Raikas of Rajasthan. Raikas of Rajasthan. The combined cultivation with pastoralism. During monsoon, the Raikas of Barmar, Jaisalmer, Jodhpur, and Bikinar stayed in their home villages where pasture was available. When the grazing ground became dry, they moved to new and greener pastures. The Maru Raikas herded camels and other group herd sheep and goat. The Maru Raika settlement is called Dundee. So same as the other pastoralists, they raise the animals in the northern and coastal regions. But this is a desert, no. So what will they raise there? They raise animals like camels. Okay. The Maldari herders of Kuch in Gujarat. They usually they are usually rearing sheep. They are usually rearing sheep. Okay. Their movement is also according to the seasonal cycle of nature in that area. They used to move in search of pasture from one area to the other. They are nomadic pastoralists. Changes in pastoral life under colonial rule. Various laws were enacted to bring pastures and the pastoralists under colonial control. So you know what? These British did not only control our lives, they control the lives of pastoralists also. They didn't let anyone to live a happy life. Okay? Thank you. Sorry. Wasteland rules. So they introduce some new rules so that they can get control over the pastoralists also. And one rule is that wasteland rules. What did they do? Wasteland rules. These grazing grounds, they do not cultivate any crops in the grazing grounds, right? So they are called uncultivated grounds. So what did they call them? They called wastelands. And what did they do with these lands? They wanted them. They selected some people, and they wanted them to settle these grounds, settle these places. They don't want any grazing grounds to leave, like they should not be left without any profit, right? So if the animals have the pasture in the wasteland, the cultivated or in the grassy land, which is also called the grazing land, what profit will the British gain? Nothing, right? They gain nothing. They want to gain something. That is why what did they do? They encouraged people to settle in these lands, and for doing the same, what did they do? They rewarded them with some gifts like providing money, land, and all. Grazing lands were transformed to cultivated lands from which land revenue was collected by the British. So by this way, they are getting some profit, right? So these lands which are settled by the few people selected by them, they pay taxes to them. So somehow they are getting few money, right? When animals eat this grass, they gain nothing. Some grazing lands were given an auction to select, later became village man from whom selected money was collected. Yes. So, and a village man is selected, and he gets all the taxes and the revenue from the people, and later from him, this money was collected by the British. Forest Acts. This is another act. So remember, till now there are two acts, right? You will get another two acts. Remember the acts because these are very important. Through the forest acts, entire forest area was classified into two categories. What is it? Reserved forest and protected forest. Reserved forest is where entry was completely forbidden. Like you're not at all allowed to enter the forest. Protected forest is where entry was allowed for observance of customary rights with strict monitoring of the movement of pastoralists by the British forest officer. So, what a protected forest is where the pastoralists can enter the forest, but a British forest officer must keep an eye on them, must notice every movement they do because they do not want to waste their land by grazing. Violation of Forest Act was attracting financial penalty and other harassment. So if they break this law of forest tax, if they enter the forest without anyone's permission, if they enter the reserved forest or the protected forest, what will happen? They will be fined with a very huge amount, or they'll be harassed. Criminal. And one more thing in forest tribes is that um, their entry and departure is recorded as well as limited. Okay. Criminal Tribes Act, that is introduced in 1871. Nomadic pastoralists were subjected to suspension by the British officials as they have no specific identity or permanent address or resident. So now they have already decided what pastoralists have to do. Now what did they do? They're not trying to have control over the nomadic pastoralists also. Who are nomadic pastoralists? Who move from one place to another. So here what happened is the nomadic pastoralists, they move from one place to another for grazing the cattle. So what did the British do? They did not have any specific identity. They did not have any permanent address or residence for the nomadic pastoralists. So it is very hard for the British to collect revenue or taxes from them, right? It is very hard because they move from one place to another. So it is very hard for the officers to recognize them. So what did they do? They forced them to settle in one place, and the police officer is um, you know he was forced to watch on these people, and they were kept in a very regulated area where they are always in a they're not allowed to move freely from one place to another, and the officer always is a security guard for them who will never allow them to go out. That means they cannot live the life they had lived before. Grazing tax. The colonial government imposed grazing tax. How many how many laws did you study till now? Wasteland, criminal, forest tax, and grazing tax. Four. The on the pastoral which were frequently high. Collection grazing tax was given an auction to contractors to enhance the revenue. Sometimes the British officials also involved to collecting this tax by issuing individual pass to the pastoralists for getting more income. So what did they do? Cattle die without food, right? So what did they do? They said you can graze your cattle in the reserved forest or the protected forest, but you must pay tax for the same. They have to pay tax in order to give food for their cattle. Impact of colonial policies. Severe shortage of pasture. That is, many animals are dying without food, without by starvation. Intensive overgrazing on the same pasture land reduce the quality of pasture. So when they did not allow these pastoralists to provide grazing to the animals, what will they do? They will take a particular land available to them, and they will graze their animals again and again and again over that area only. And what would happen when the animals keep on plucking the grass with their mouth? So the soil loses its fertility, and the quality does not be the same, and plants may not grow on the field, right? Scarcity of fodder led to ill health, disease, and death of the cattle flock. Reduction in number of cattle changed the cattle movement to new areas. So this cattle number became very less and less and less. So what will the pastoralists do? Who are dependent only on this cattle, they will move to another place where they can find fodder for their animals. Adoption of settled life and engagement in other professions, trade, and even labor work by the pastoralists. So their pastures are dying, they don't have any other option. So what will they do? They will settle in a land, they will settle in a place, and they will find works, they will find a job, they will find a profession like trading, labor work, right? They'll get engaged in each one of the other work. Pastoralism in Africa. Till now, we have learned about pastoralism in India and the colonial rule in India. Now, we are starting with pastoralism in Africa. About 22 million people are involved in pastoral activity. How many? 22 million people. Okay, 22 million people are involved in pastoral activity. Among them are Bedouins, Berbers, Maasais, Somali, Boran, and Turkan are prominent. So these six groups are very famous. Okay, there is cattle, camels, goats, sheep, and donkeys, as well as sell milk, meat, animal skin, and wool, same as the pastoralists in India. Some are also combining pastoral activity with agriculture, trade, transport, and other odd jobs to sustain their life. So here six tribes are given. Among the six, we are going to learn about the Maasai community. Maasai community, okay? Maasai means my people. In Africa, Maasai means my people, okay? They are actually found in East Africa, that is southern Kenya and Tanzania. They are primarily cattle herders. What do they do? Cattle herders, that is, they raise animals like sheep, goat, cow, and etc. In 19th century, after a fight for territory among different European powers in Africa, the area of Maasai land was divided into different colonies. So what happened? There was a fight between Africa and Europe for lands. Okay, in the 19th century. So what happened? This Maasai land was divided into different colonies. That means different pieces because of this fight. The best grazing land for this area became white settlements, cultivated land, national parks. So what happened? The Maasai community lived in a best grazing land, but this area later became an area for wide settlements, cultivated land, and national parks. For wild national parks, not to increase knowledge about for African people. It is to it is for enjoyment of the white and the British people. Even Africa is under the British rule. Was under the British rule. Impact of colonialism on Maasai pastoralists. Like India also had colonialism, Maasai also had colonialism of the British only. Loss of grazing land for the livestock. They lost grazing land because the white people came and settled in that grazing land. They turned it into national parks, right? So they lost their grazing land and their livestock also. Their movement restricted, confined to fixed area in a special reserves. Continuous grazing in a specific area led to deterioration of quality pastures. Shortage of pasture due to droughts led to ill health, disease, and death of animal flock in large number. Colonial rule also affected the traditional Maasai society. Except the last point, all the other points are similar to the colonialism effect of India also, right? So, what does the last point say? This affected the tradition of Maasai society. For example, their tradition might be like their culture might be like only raising animals and working for them. I mean, taking care of animals might be their only tradition, but after they lost their grazing land, they have nothing to do. Nothing. They're now working as a farm labor or a labor at houses and all, right? So they lost that tradition. The tradition was affected by this colonial rule. The Maasai society, traditionally divided into two groups, elders and warriors. Nice, right? Elders and warriors. Elders form the ruling group, exercise authority, decide the community affairs, and settle disputes. What does this elders do? In the name itself says they are elders. Okay, what do they do? They are ruling group. They rule the society. They rule the Maasai society, and they settle the disputes. If someone is having a fight with others, they solve the matter. The warriors consisted with a young man used to defend the community and organize cattle raids on another. Okay, so so you can say that elders are for elder people, warriors are for younger people. Changes on Maasai society under colonialism. British colonial authorities interfered the traditional affairs of Maasai. In order to administer their affairs, new chiefs of various subgroups were appointed. These chiefs were rich and also had both pastoral and non pastoral income, and therefore remained unaffected during crisis and drought. So, what happened is, new chiefs, there are also some people who are rich. They're pastoralists as well as non-pastoralists. They are dependent on both. So when the pastoralism is affected by the colonism, they didn't feel anything, that did not affect them much, because they are also dependent on non-pastoral income. So they did not get affected so much. The poor pastoralists were affected by colonial policies, droughts, famine, and war, and finally pushed to the labor market. Changes in, okay. The traditional difference based on age was between the elders and the warriors were disturbed. A new distinction between the rich and the poor pastoralists developed. Now the rich and poor can be distinguished very easily by their appearance only. Now this is the conclusion. It is all about that we have learned. Thank you. So this is the video for today, and in this video we have covered a full chapter, that is pastoralism in the modern world. So in the next video I'll be coming with a very interesting topic with a very easy explanation. Until that, bye bye. Please do subscribe and like my channel. Bye bye.